I waited for all subjects from morning to evening. Other
So,
students also interacted with me. Sir, okay, sir. Then today let us take.
okay. Mm. See, Manjusha sent Maggie to everyone. She's saying that we attended the class. Yes, I took the class. That's what I'm saying. I don't know why you people didn't get, but I took the class. You got it? Anyway, we are left with four classes. I hope I'm audible. If you have any problem, please let me know regarding my voice.
It's audible. However, the volume is very low. You got to increase your volume. Maybe the
Okay.
microphone needs to be close to your mouth.
Okay, okay, okay. Is it clear right now?
We can hear you, but it's not. The volume is not that high.
Anyway, please do cooperate. I don't know. Could be a problem with this microphone that I'm using. I'll try to speak louder. So what I'm saying is that we are left with four classes and we have to complete almost most of the topics except the novels that we have covered. From second block, we have covered Untouchable, Train to Pakistan, and The Quilt. Here, from the third block, we have completed Mother 1084 and Nagamandala. These were the topics that we discussed about in the last class on 12th. And today we are going to talk about another beautiful novel by Salman Rushdie from third block and unit number 17, and a short play by Manjula Padmanabhan from unit number 20 from block 4. And rest of the topics will be covered unit wise from tomorrow onwards till the end of the session course. So today basically we are going to talk about Salman Rushdie and his novel Shame. Salman Rushdie is actually an Indian-born British American novelist. His work often combines magic realism with historical fiction and primarily deals with connections, disruptions, and migrations between Eastern and Western civilizations set on the Indian subcontinent. So most of his works talks about magic realism and social realism, and there is a discussion about the Eastern and Western civilizations in the merge of in the advent of the freedom struggle as well as the partition of India and Pakistan. So this particular novel saying, let me share the PPT or not notes around here. Yes. Okay, it's same by Salman Rushdie, not him by Salman Rushdie. There, S has missed out. So same is a 1983 novel by Salman Rushdie, a difficult novel to categorize. Same might be included in a very category of magical realism for its tacit acceptance of completely perpetual. Sorry, just a minute. Yeah, sure. So it's a novel that was, written by Sharman Rushdie in 1983, and it's very difficult to categorize this particular novel. And personally, we can include it as a magic realism, which is the main genre in which Salman Rushdie always write his works. And this particular novel might also be considered as a political allegory. It takes place in a fictionalized version of the city of Kuwait in Pakistan, and several of its characters seemed based on Pakistan politicians. So the novel took place in Kuwait, and the name of Kuwait is not been actually used in this particular novel. It is uh, mentioned as Q, simply Q, the letter Q. And several of its characters are based on Pakistani politicians. This would be in keeping with President Rushdie's prior novel, The Celebrated Midnight Children. It's one of the most celebrated novels of Salman Rushdie. Midnight Children is actually talking about the advent of uh, the children, those who born during the time of 1947, when we had a fight among ourselves to divide the country into Pakistan and India. So that novel talks about that division, and we also have a movie on the same name. Okay, so Midnight Children was also deeply concerned with the health of a state. In that case, India of the British Raj after its independence from Britain and subsequent partition along religious lines into the independent countries of India and Pakistan. Sam begins in a sprawling mansion in Q means Kuwait, at the age of Afghanistan and Pakistan. Okay, called Nishapur. It is supposedly the former home of the poet Omar Khayyam. Omar Khayyam is a noted poet, and it is starting from Nishapur in a place in Kuwait at the age of Afghanistan and Pakistan, near the border. Okay? Three unusual sisters, Chunni, Munni, and Bunni, dwell over here. These three sisters are dwelling together and they had a son. One of the sisters, which is closely guarded secret, gives birth to a son who is named Umar. After the previous owner of the home, the sisters raise him in isolation from the rest of the world, and he grows up feeling his difference from the world without understanding it. Finally, the sisters allow him to leave the boundaries of Nishapur, but only if he promises never to feel shame. Okay? The problem was that around the globe during that time, there were so many chaos. Okay? That's why they thought that okay, we are not going to leave our kid to experience the bitter truth of the society, of the culture, and the civilization. That's why they didn't allow him to go out. But ultimately, when he grows up, they allowed him to go out in only one condition that okay, he should not feel shame. Umar makes this promise and goes on to live a debauched life, which nonetheless does not prevent him from attaining great acclaim as an immunologist. Uma makes friends with Iskandar Harappa. Iskandar Harappa, they have made many playboy, adventures together. But eventually, Iskandar Harappa marries Rani Humayun. They have a daughter, Arjumand, who obtains the nickname Virgin Iron Pants for her steely determination to defeat the obstacles her gender places in the way of her achievement. So she was termed as she was termed as Virgin Iron Pants because she was very determined to solve the problem, to solve the issues that she had to face being a woman. Iski means actually Skandar Harappa. So Iski enters politics on his forfeit birthday. His rival is Raja Haidar. Raja Haidar has a storied past of his own and with his wife, Bilqis, has two daughters, Sophia and Navid. They have been nicknamed respectively Shame and Good News. So Raja Haid had two daughters, Sophia and Navid, and they have been nicknamed. And these were nicknamed as Shame and Good News. Okay. Sophia has only reached the mental age of 9 because of a fever she had when young, although her mother believed that this is God's punishment for her infidelity. Within Sophia's Within Sophia grows a beast whose eyes flash through hers from time to time, made up of the world's unfelt shame. Over time, the beast, which seems to be a separate entity from Sophia, grows more powerful within her, gaining the ability to take her body over and wreak havoc. One on occasion, while possessed by the beast, Sophia bites the heads of 200 turkeys, killing them all and falling ill herself as a result with shame. Attempting to treat her for the illness of shame, Umar falls in love with her. So Umar, the person who was forbidden to go outside and feel shame, this person fall in love with that character called shame. However, Sophia's episode continue at her sister Navid's wedding. Sophia invites the groom. So during that case as well, during that time, she also buys the groom. Despite Sophia's increasing instability, Omar resolves to marry her, doing so in a quick ceremony. He is forbidden to have sex with her. Instead, he states himself with her Aya. Aya means nursemaid, Savano. Okay, Sophia doesn't quite understand what her marriage is lacking, but she understands enough to know that wives are supposed to provide their husbands with children and that the sounds coming from her husband's bedroom mean Savano has usurped her position. This realization brings the beast to life in a more violent way than before, and in a frenzy, Sophia runs out into the night and rapes and you know decapitates decapitates four boys. She recovers from her illness. The beast's shame is no longer is a burden to her. She has surrendered to it. Now, when Umar and Raja discover what Sufia has done, they drag her unconscious and lock her up in the attic. So there is a very beautiful novel, or is a critical treatise written by Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gober, that is Mad Woman in the Attic. And there is also a beautiful novel written by Emily Bronte, Wuthering Heights. So in particular, these novels, there is a character called, Rochester, who captured her wife because of such kind of belief or misbelief, you can say, in an attic. It's a dark room, okay, that has been locked for a long time. So here, Umar and Raja discovered Sufia and locked her up in the attic. To keep her unconscious and everyone else safe, Umar has to continue to give her injections twice a day. Sophia escapes her imprisonment, transforming into a mythological creature called the White Panther. Okay? So she transforms. See, we are talking about some reality, right? We are talking about some reality regarding the partition, regarding the chaotic situation of the time when the entire world was suffering from a disease called war, fighting among us. So this is talking about the reality along with suddenly he's moving from reality to the magic reality. Okay. So that's why we can also fall this novel under the category called magic realism. Suddenly he was talking about two or real life people, and then he's moving to mythical characters. So she transformed into a mythological creature called the White Panther, hairless over its body with a black head. She terrorizes the country. Meanwhile, Raja has overthrown Prime Minister Ski, and this is a very common thing in Pakistan because at the beginning I told you that the novel has been based on some of the Pakistani political leaders. So it's very common that okay, not even a single prime minister will survive for their actual tenure of 5 years. They will be overthrown, and this is what is the main cause of the inflammation of the economy of Pakistan. So when meanwhile Raja had overthrown Prime Minister Iski, declared Islamic law, and had Iski executed. Okay. Raja is the then overthrown himself, but disguised in women's clothes, flees with his wife and Umar to Umar's childhood home, Nisapur. The three do not receive the welcome, they expect. The three sisters have nursed a grudge against Raja, who was responsible for the death of their second son. They kill him brutally using a dumb waiter. Sophia eventually comes for Omar. When she finds him, she beheads him as she has her other victims, and in the end, they both, the shameless and the shame itself, perish in a fire. So see, it's a tragedy that has been, delineated and portrayed in the form of loose narratives, using prose narratives. So here Salman Rushdie, in order to portray the dilemma that is existing into the society of that time, he didn't have delivered it through the through the dramatic way, taking a venture to the through the dramatic way, but he had chosen the form of loose narratives. He narrated it in his own way, using some mythological and magical realism to depict the brutal truth in a very, very loose narration. So this was the story or the plot, the critical overview of this particular novel, Shame, by Salman Rushdie. There's another play that we can talk about is भाई भाई झाड़ू नहीं लगाना, ठीक है? नहीं। Yes, sorry for the inconvenience. Let me share the screen once again. Yes, so we were talking about Manjula Padmanabhan. She's from the unit number 20, and here she has, in this particular syllabus, we have harvest as a play. So I was telling that okay, she is very famous for writing two plays. One is Lights Out, and another one is Harvest. And both these plays are based on some real life incidents. Lights Out is actually a silent observation of a family. Maybe during the time of evening, a family was talking into their own, kitchen, and they were observing that a young girl is being brutally, molested in a, newly erected building, an incomplete building, from the window. And they were silent. They were not doing anything. Simply, they were discussing. And finally, what they saw is that till they come up to a kind of decision to call police or take some necessary actions, the girl was molested during the time. Okay. So that was a particular novel. It was based on real life and true story. And sorry, not novel, a play. And this particular play is also based on a real life incident that she might have, read from some newspaper or might have gone through somewhere in her life. So the plot of this particular novel is that Harvest is a futuristic dystopian play by Manjula Padmanabhan about organ selling in India. Okay? It was first published in 1997 by Kali for Women. Okay? The play takes place in a future Bombay. In 2010, Om Prakash, a jobless Indian, agrees to sell unspecified organs through interplantar services to a rich person for a small fortune. Interplanter and the recipients are obsessed with maintaining Om's health and invasively control the lives of Om. His mother, that is Ma, and his wife, Jaya, in their one room apartment. The recipient, Ginny, periodically looks in on them via video phone and treats them condescendingly. Om's deceased brother Jitu is taken to give organs instead of Om. So it's talking about that the kind of business that was going on, and we also have a company over here. Name of a company that is there, that is prevalent. The people are going to sell their organs in order to survive, in order to have a good life. So without organs, they are thinking that they will have good lives. So it's all because of the poverty that we have, all because that we have a system that we have in our society that okay, there is a hierarchy. And because of these hierarchies, because of this, class systems, because of the capital systems, some people are having more and more, and some people are not even having their day-to-day breads and butters. Okay. So because of that, one of the owner of the family, or you can say the only the uh, torch bearer of that particular family, decided to sell his organs to a particular company. But when he was under observation by that company, he felt very sick, and due to which, as a compensation, his brother had to give organs instead of him. So this was the story of this particular novel, sorry, play, Harvest. And now let's talk about some of the aspects of the report on education. We talk about the Macular's minute in the first class, and we didn't talk about the Vanilla Country Subrow's report. Okay. Subrow's report about the school education system in Madras. We talked about Thomas Babington Macaulay's Minute that was produced in 1835, but we didn't talk about Subrow's report about education. Let's talk about that one because anyway we have to complete it and we have very less time. Okay, so let's talk about Subrow's report. The actual title of that report is the first report on the Madras School Book Society on Education in English, in schools. Vanilla Kunti Subro, I do not know whether the pronunciation is correct or not, but he is a South Indian.
Vanilla Kunti Subro, sir.
Yes, Vanilla Kunti Subro. He's a South Indian, Telugu Brahmin, and he's a native of Ongole in Madras Presidency. So, in this particular report, he's talking about certain aspects of Indian education system because in most of the cases when we are going to talk about the Charter Act of 1813, when we are going to talk about the Macaulay Minutes of 1835, and also the letter that was sent by Raja Rammohn Roy in 1820, we're talking about the implementation of English education. They were talking about the implementation of English education in Indian, schools and institutions, colleges and universities. But here in this particular report, he's not only going to talk about English education, but also going to talk about the vernacular, okay? The teaching systems and the use of words, the promotion of languages, vernacular languages like uh, yes, according to him, he says that okay, Sanskrit among the Indian languages was taught regularly and correctly, and there were grammar books in the other languages. They were not known in the schools. He wishes that the languages too had been taught with the same methodicity as Sanskrit. So, like Telugu, Maratha, Kannada, all these schools should have taught their own languages, and they should also teach them their own grammar. About English education, he said that okay, there is no specific age of entry for studying English. Students first learn the alphabet from a printed spelling book. They move to the vocabulary and dialect prepared by native English masters, which was by no means correct or grammatical. So at the end of first chapter, what you will get to know in this chapter results, Subrow's report of 1820 on education acquaints us with the condition of education in the school of Madras Presidency in the early 20th century and recommends some measures for their improvement. The report assumes significance in the light of debates on education that the colonial administration in India was initiating, then for the inclusion of morals among the public servants. Apart from underlining the measures for the improvement of the native and the English schools and the moral teaching, it anticipates the recommendations in Macula's Minute of creating a class of Indians who are English in taste. That's what I say. Right? That they wanted to, when we were talking about the Macula's Minute, the purpose of Macula's Minute was to create some servants, some clerks, for the sake of their own purpose, not for the sake of the betterment of Indian education system or Indian civilizations. They were teaching English. They were importing the Western science and technology and also literature. They were introducing it in India in English language, not for the sake of the betterment of Indians, but for the sake of them. They were creating some machines who will be Indian in blood but English in taste. Okay, that's what we are also doing right now because probably we don't know because we have been hegemonized, and that's why we are not even thinking because the way of life that we are having right now is also uh, monitorized by the Western people, and we are following them happily. Whatever we're doing, there is a touch of the Western culture. Okay, so that this should be made by a native a good 15 years of before my pronouncement makes this document very special. Anyway, this particular person, Subro, he wrote a book about himself that was his autobiography, or the first autobiography written in English during that time. But it was not published when he wrote it or completed it. It was published much later after his death, and that's why he's always underrated, and his reports are not been discussed anywhere, like the reports of Macaulay, the letters of Raja Ram Mohan Rai are of great importance in the academy. So those reports has not been, this report has not been discussed anywhere. So in a nutshell, if we are going to discuss about it, we can say that okay, we should not have found the spelling strange had it been something like you know vanilla come to Subro. We feel the same when we come across the spelling like uh, Kadapa, Kannada or Kannada. So according to Subro, he says that in this report, he explains the condition of education during his time in the Madras presidency and his recommendations for his improvement. The letter Subro wrote to the secretary of Madras School Book Society was published in a book in 1823 by the society. The letter was also published in 1873 in Subro's autobiography, the first autobiography to be written by an Indian in English. But it was, or it is not recognized in the domain of English literature or Indian English literature. But later on, it was maybe Srinivas Iyengar who had a close observation of all these things and antique pieces. And because of that only, we are getting all this kind of information regarding Subra and his report and the autobiography. So during Subro's time, education was understood as a mere reading, right? Reading simply meant ability to the part of the student to read fluently. This is a very ancient process. If you are aware of the grammar translation methods that we use in ELT English language teaching, so this is the first method that was used for the purpose of teaching a second language. So for the purpose of learning a second language, when it was maybe during the time of uh, this particular method was used by the people, those who were teaching or learning the Latin languages and Greek languages. During the time, what happened is that they were giving some kind, some books or some uh, cracks of that particular language were written down into sentence formations or into some phrases, and those phrases or sentences were supposed to be read again and again and memorize them for a long time. This was the process during the time. Uh, Grammar translation method was talking about translating a particular language into the another language, and during that time they were also using their mother tongue to translate it. And it was not a critical way of learning, because when you are memorizing, when you are going through a process called rote learning, you are simply going to mug it up. Nothing will be there in your brain. It will simply touch the cells of your brain and then come out. So that's what he's saying, that okay, uh, education during the time of Subro was understood as a mere reading, and reading simply meant ability to the part of the student to read fluently. There was no attempt to understand the meaning of what was being read. So that's what was happening. Okay, so this is the first step. Obviously, during the very first time when we were being introduced with certain kind of books or certain kind of treatise to read and understand, in the beginning we were struggling to read in a fluent manner. So that's why maybe the teachers of the time were focusing much on reading. Right now we have so many skills like LSRW. First we have to listen, then we have to speak, then we have to read and then write. Now the processes are being well organized, and we are focusing on all the aspects of uh, teaching and learning. But during that time, reading was being given much more importance than any other thing. So there was no attempt to understand the meaning of what was being read. There was no attempt to teach grammar. So thus, students those days would study at the age of 10 or 11 and enter their family professions. So after reading up to the age of 10 and 11, they entered into the professions that their family carrying out since their you know since the beginning of their ancestry. So the education they received had nothing to do with the profession they practiced. So the students who were taught accounts and morals, etc., there was no effort to make them understand the value of that. But this sentence needs to be read along with the sentence that says the education that the students received was inconsistent with the professions practiced by various families. When we read them together, it appears that Subro may wish that the education had been caste based, geared to suit the needs of the family profession. Or he may be, like some other of his time, unhappy that education had been extended to boys of all castes. So, what he's saying is that education was at the time most probably utilized by the boys. It was utilized by the boys because when we are talking about 1820, during the time, females were not given the permission to go to the sector where males were easily you know have their access. Even if you are reading English literature, you will find that okay, after 18, I mean after the Victorian age only, women were being permitted to go outside to the public domain to take part into the political, aspects, social aspects, cultural aspects. It was only after 18th and 19th century, that was the Victorian age, during the time of Queen Victoria. So same was the case with us in our Indian society as well. Anyway, Subro says that schoolmasters used to get more pay when there were less number of schools. Probably the few who could afford to send their children to school earlier were able to send more money. Opening up schools to all castes and in all villages will no longer make teaching an exclusive occupation. Obviously, People from lower caste could not afford to pay as much as the upper caste could pay. The Subro's statements probably suggest that he was not too happy with this democratization. Anyway, Indian languages in Indian languages there were very few of the native English teachers had any knowledge of English grammar, and it's very true. When you are teaching a second language, and if you are not having proper teachers, when you are not having a good number of teachers, it will be very difficult for the education system to run a particular course, to run a particular uh, you know syllabi. Okay, so Subro uses the term native to refer to the other Indians like him. This perhaps suggests that he would like to place himself with the British because very few people like him had a good command of English those days. That he was able to impress his English masters may have also made him feel he was like them. So he was, comparing himself that I'm a native because I can speak fluently, I can write in English, whereas the other companions or other fellows from my country are not so much competent into that particular language. So that's why he was saying that, okay, only very few native English teachers had any knowledge of English grammar. For the native schools of Subro recommends grammar books written in prose, moral tales, and mathematics explained in prose. For the English schools, he recommended abridgments of existing grammar books and use of the Indian language and translations for the teaching of English, dialects, and vocabulary, and the history of the world. Thus, Subro emphasizes the use of prose and abridgment of grammar books in the teaching of Indian language. Similarly, he suggests the use of Indian languages when teaching in English. The recommendations can be seen as a definite improvement from the existing practice as he emphasizes. As his emphasis seems to be on making it easy for the students to understand what was being taught. So these were some of the recommendations that has been actually given by Subro in his particular treatise, or report of 1820. Okay, I hope this is clear. And we also have talked about Macaulay's minute, and we had also gone through the beginning or the entering process of English language into our country. How did it enter? What was the conflict that we have between the Oriental and the Occident and Orient? We had a kind of a conflict between that. And because of that, we have Anglicist and Orientalist. And because of that fight, we had a society called established by St. John's. Then Macaulay was appointed to come up with certain uh, changes into the system, and then he brought this particular minute on 2nd February 1835, where he has gave some certain kinds of recommendations and which were being utilized for a long time. And that's why this uh, minute is very much important in the Indian higher education system. So let's see how many topics we have left with. In the first block, we have from ancient ballads, Saguna, Kanya Sulkam, and Buddha or Karl Marx. So we will complete it tomorrow. Then from block 2, we have left selected points by Rabindranath Tagore. There is nothing to read about that because we don't have any specific point. We just have to talk about uh, some of his, main themes that we can find in his poems. Then selected poems of Nissim Ezekiel and Maestri by Kamala Das. Okay, so this will be in the next class after tomorrow. And selected poems by Jayant Mahapatra again. Jayant Mahapatra is a poet from Orissa. Kamala Das or Kamala Suraiya from Kerala. Rabindranath Tagore from West Bengal. Then we have Where Shall We Go This Summer? Anita Desai. We also have to talk about this. And Volga, Ione, we have to talk about this. Okay. The fourth unit, the fourth block, we have some other text. The Beginnings of English Literature Study in India, Gauri Vishwanathan. Okay, so we'll talk about this, all these aspects. I will make some notes on this and I will share it with you. Probably I shared the notes with two of the girls, and I don't think that okay, they have shared it in your group. If it could be shared in your group, probably you could have an idea that okay, I took the class on 12th as well. I don't know why you didn't get the link or why didn't you get the availability of the class, but I took the class. Anyway, you could have report during that time that okay, why the class is being not showing in your portal. So anyway, if you have any doubt regarding the topic that we have been covered, you please note it down, and probably tomorrow when I will talk about these things, we will try to have a kind of discussion. And again, forward the notes to the same person. Please forward it to your groups so that it will be easy for you when you are going to prepare for your final exam. Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. You can leave if you don't have any other query to ask. Tomorrow we'll be joining in the same time at 10:30 a.m.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good time.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much, sir.
Thank you.